joining us today for the first online session from the International Linguistic Society for Linguistics Athens 2026. It's my pleasure to be here today and to introduce Tram Thai, and their presentation is The Effects of Linguistic Context, the Emotional Valence on the Acquisition of Novel Vocabulary in EFL Learners.
So hello everyone, my name is Tram, and today I'm going to present my study on the role of emotional context in L2 vocabulary learning. And because due to time constraints, I will only focus on a part of the study. So specifically, this study investigates how emotional context influence incidental novel word learning in EFL learners. And the motivation for this study lies in the fact that emotion has long been recognized to significantly influence human cognition. It is because emotional stimuli tend to receive prioritized processing, and which generally leads to enhanced attention, encoding, and retention of information. Yeah. And so when it comes to language acquisition, the effective embodiment account also suggests that emotional valence facilitates the learning and grounding of word meanings by providing an embodied learning experience. This means that compared to neutral word like chair and capacity, valence word either positive like gratitude or negative like screaming are generally learned faster, recognized better, and also retained longer. And this effect is even more noticeable for abstract terms. That means although learners might learn the word screaming and chair equally well, they are more likely to learn and retain the word gratitude and much better than the word capacity. Um, However, now in the literature, the gap exists. Little research looks into the effects of emotional linguistic input in the realm of SLA, and also existing research shows mixed conclusions on whether positive or negative contexts are more facilitative for L2 learning. And this makes it remain a complex area that requires more investigation. So, therefore, in the study, I aim to address this gap by asking these questions. First of all, which emotional context, positive, negative, or neutral, leads to better immediate learning of the form of L2 novel words from reading short narratives, and which emotional context leads to better immediate learning of the denotative meaning of L2 novel words from reading those short narratives. And for the methodology, the final analysis of the study involves 74 Vietnamese learners of English who had self-rated English proficiency of about B2 level, and they began learning English through classroom instruction at an average age of 8. And these participants received an inconvenience allowance of around $3 for their participation. My study employed a within subject experimental design in an incidental word learning paradigm. In this design, participants were exposed to words presented in all three valent conditions without knowing exactly what would be tested later on. And the contextual valence is the independent variable, and the learning of the participant was accessed through different tests in which accuracy and reaction time were recorded. And those are also the dependent variables in the study. The material used were adapted from the work of Dong and colleagues in 2024, and this consists of 60 short narratives that were evenly distributed across three valence conditions. And to ensure appropriateness for B2 learners, EFL learners, low frequency vocabulary and some commonly misunderstood grammar structure were replaced with more familiar alternatives. The material also includes 30 novel words, all of which were pseudo-adjectives, and each of them was embedded in two separate narratives of the same valence and would appear twice within a passage. And it can look like this. For example, here I have I won a passable prize in writing today. I love the feeling of writing passable stories. And the assignment of target words to valence condition was counterbalanced so that each appear in different contexts across participants. And the experiment includes three main stages. The first one is reading, then they would do a speed recognition task, and finally is a meaning matching task. So in the reading phase, the participants were randomly assigned to one of the three versions of word to valence assignment, and then they read the 60 narratives in random order. There were five attention check questions asking about the content of the preceding narrative, and participants could only proceed to the next narrative once they had got the correct answer. And for those who score less than 70% on their first attempt, uh, they would be excluded from the whole experiment. In the speed recognition task, this task was used to measure form learning. The participant judged whether a display letter string had appeared in the reading phase, and there were a total of 60 items, including 30 target novel words and 30 foils, and they were presented in random order. And the participants were instructed to respond as quickly as possible, but still prioritize accuracy over speed. In the meaning matching task, which was aimed to measure denotative meaning learning, participants chose the English word that best correspond to the meaning of the novel word. And all three options here were carefully controlled for valence, meaning that they were all positive, negative, or neutral. And the valence score of these options were carefully controlled using the norm of Werner and colleagues with a maximum difference of around 0.5 units on the scale of 1 to 9. And there were 30 trials presented in random order. For the analysis of the data, evidence of learning was assessed using one sample t-test, or in case normality was violated, I used Wilkerson siren test. The effect of contextual valence on accuracy was analyzed using generalized linear mixed models, and the reaction time data was analyzed after being log transformed. They were analyzed with linear mixed model. The fixed effects is the contextual valence with random intercepts for both participant and stimuli included. So moving to the results section, to assess participant sensitivity to target for discrimination in the speedy recognition task, D prime score were calculated from the number of hits, false alarms, correct rejections, and misses. And the Wilkerson siren test revealed that the D prime score significantly differed from chance level, which is 0. And this means that participants could distinguish learned items from foils. And in this chart, we can see the mean recognition accuracy. 0 mean incorrect and 1 mean correct. And here we can see that negative condition had the most correct answers, then positive, and then neutral. Generalized linear mixed models show a significant main effect of valence on recognition accuracy. And in the post hoc test, it revealed that compared to word learned in the neutral narrative, participants were significantly more accurate in recognizing words seen in the negative narratives. The other two comparisons showed no significant results. For the speed recognition reaction time, those hits trial with reaction time exceeding 3 standard deviations from each participant were removed. And the mean reaction time of the remaining trial is presented here in this chart. And we can see that the negative condition had the fastest recognition speed, then positive, and then neutral. The remaining reaction time data were log transformed and analyzed with a Gaussian linear mixed model. However, no significant effect of contextual valence on recognition speed was found. For the meaning matching accuracy, a Wilkerson siren test revealed that participant performance was above chance level, meaning that the denotative meaning was successfully learned. In this chart, it showed the average accuracy score per valence, and again, negative condition had the most correct answer, then positive, and then neutral. The generalized linear mixed model showed a significant main effect on valence, a valence on meaning matching accuracy. The Boss-Hot test revealed that compared to what learned in the neutral narrative, participants were significantly more accurate in matching the meaning of words seen in the negative and positive narratives, and there were no differences between the negative and positive conditions. For meaning matching reaction time, the same trimming procedures were followed, and the mean reaction times of the remaining trials is presented here. And again, we see the negative condition had the fastest recognition speed, then the positive, and then the neutral one. Gaussian linear mixed model on the log transform reaction time revealed a significant effect of contextual valence on meaning matching speed. In the post hoc test, we see that compared to what learned in the neutral narrative, participants were significantly faster in assessing meaning of words seen in the negative and positive narrative. And we also see a very clear negativity advantage here, with response time was significantly faster in the negative condition than in the positive one. So overall, these findings indicate that while emotional context, particularly negative ones in this study, enhance the recognition accuracy of novel word form, they do not lead to faster recognition responses. And for denotative meaning, emotional context, no matter what the polarity is, can result in more accurate and faster meaning accessing of novel words. And these results align with the effective embodiment account, which holds that emotional valence enriches semantic representations. And in the study, the pseudo adjective, which were originally meaningless and neutral, might be given effective association from the emotional narrative. And this acquired emotional valence in turn strengthened semantic encoding, and that led to improved learning outcomes. The findings also reveal a notable negativity advantage in the early stage novel word learning, and this aligns with the automatic vigilance hypothesis, which posits that threatening or negative stimuli inherently capture and hold attention longer because they are perceived as more urgent. This leads to a processing advantage of negative stimuli. And this study also has some limitation. The first one is that the insufficient control of participant proficiency. Yeah, because proficiency level due to time constraints were not formally measured, but determined only through self-report. And similarly, the suitability of the adjusted narratives was determined based on teacher judgment rather than any objective and standardized measure. So that can be subjective. So therefore, future research can incorporate independent proficiency assessment using some short objective screening tests like Lextel or some like task in the experiment as a baseline to test whether the participant have that proficiency needed for the study. And future study can also incorporate some objective measure of text difficulty to complement teacher judgment. Uh, in conclusion, the findings suggest that both positive and negative context enhance initial novel L2 word learning, and a clear negativity advantage emerged immediately after exposure, with negative context outperforming others in both form recognition and denotative meaning learning. And these findings also have pedagogical implication. If we have a strategic integration of emotional content in EFL classroom, especially some clear, vivid, and carefully framed negative scenarios, they can act as a powerful tool to enhance the initial encoding of new vocabulary. Yes, and I would like to thank my supervisor, Dr. Ainaka Saponsa, for her guidance and support in this project. And I'm also grateful to all the participants who took part in my study. And here are some of the references I used for this presentation. Thank you very much for your attention, and I'm happy to take any questions.
Does anybody have any questions for Trem? Inger, if you would like to unmute yourself.
Yeah, thank you. Very interesting. I have follow-up questions on the variability of your participants. I mean, first of all, you could check in your random effect structure how they behave differently, and then try to get a handle on that. I mean, you mentioned that you had that proficiency might play a role, but there's also an interesting confound with valence, because valence might be gradiently different across items and across people. So in other studies, people have done rating, a rating phase of valence before they then actually do the actual experiment, so that you can then use the valence judgment, the rating by a particular participant as a covariate, because that can give you a handle on how negative and how positive is something for a particular person, because that varies. And finally, there's a problem with learning aptitude. We have done studies with phoneme learning, and we found using bottom-up clustering analysis that we actually had 3 different groups in our learners: those that did not learn at all, those that learned immediately, and those that learned where the learning effect showed a little bit later. So if you do a cluster analysis of your participants, this might bring you even further into your analysis of valence and proficiency and so on. Sorry, that was a long
Thank you.
co-talk. Even sorry.
Okay, thank you very much, Ingo.
Okay, we're going to move on, just as I'm aware of timing, so thank you for your questions and for your presentation, Trem. Next, we have, apologies for my pronunciation of these, Munira. There we go. And so I will be doing the slides, and so just give me a heads up for when you want to go. Okay. So your presentation is called Language Choice on Social Media Platforms, the Case of Kuwait Arabic, Twitter, X. Okay, so whenever you're ready.
Okay, thank you. Thank you so much. Good evening, everyone. And thank you for being here today. My name is Munira Lajlan, and I teach in Kuwait University. I initially planned this presentation as a poster presentation, and I was supposed to be in Greece. However, given the current circumstances with the war, with the Iran war against the Gulf, and thankfully for the conference team for allowing me to present it as a paper presentation. So thank you again. So I also made a little bit of change to the presentation itself. Instead of looking at the language choice in general, I made it more focused on the current situation in Kuwait. So slide. Let me begin with a simple observation. Social media, especially platforms such as Twitter, and I still call it Twitter, by the way, I'm against the word X, has significantly transformed how people use language. And in multilingual societies, these platforms are not just communication tools. They are rather spaces where identity, culture, and social meanings are constantly negotiated between the users. It is both a multilingual and diglossic society. So Kuwait provides this particular interesting case where two languages of the same two varieties of the same language coexist. So we have the higher variety, which is the modern standard Arabic, and we have the low variety, which is the colloquial Arabic, which is spoken by the people. These speakers, we move between these varieties all the time. However, it will be rather silly to use the modern standard Arabic in everyday life. So it is like the language that is taught in school. It's a subject taught in school. It is used in media. It is used in newspaper, in TV shows. However, not to be spoken by the people. So this study explores how Kuwaiti users choose between Kuwaiti Arabic, Modern Standard Arabic, and English, specifically on Twitter. So the study questions what social meanings do these choices reflect? Next slide. So to understand this, I draw on Michael Klein's concept of pluricentric languages. A pluricentric language is one that has multiple centers, each with its own norms and identities. And Arabic is considered to be the perfect example here. So we have a national varieties like Kuwaiti Arabic, Egyptian Arabic, Levanten, Emirati Arabic, Saudi Arabic. And alongside, we have the modern standard Arabic that I mentioned earlier, which serves as a shared supernatural form. So in this framework, Kuwaiti Arabic represents a local identity center, while the modern standard Arabic represents a broader and formal standard. What is fascinating is how these centers interact on social media. They don't remain separate. They overlap, they intertwine with each other. Next.
Oops. You seem to have one hiding at the top. Here you go.
Now, let's consider the concept of diglossia in Kuwait. Again, traditionally, Kuwait follows a clear distinction. The higher variety, which is the modern standard Arabic, used in the formal context, and the low variety, the colloquial Kuwaiti, is used in everyday communication. And this distinction has historically been stable across domains like education, media, public discourse. However, what we see nowadays is a shift, especially when Twitter or social media platform affords us with multiple tools to use these varieties. So instead of a strict separation between those two varieties, language use has become more fluid. And users move from one variety depending on the context, depending on the audience, the intention, and the content of the tweet itself, the post itself. What is the tweet about? Next. Okay, so basically the methodology, I should also mention that this is still work in progress. This is not finalized, and I would welcome any feedback at the end of the presentation. So the methodology was based on on a corpus of approximately 1,000 tweets taken from Kuwaiti figures on social media, all with public and open accounts, not private ones. And the participants include people from politics, people from education, from media, social affairs, businessmen, and so on. And the data was collected over the 2 month period, specifically when I wanted to look at the tweets that majorly looked at or discussed, let's say, the war in Kuwait. So the conflict started end of February. And again, this gave me the time to, focus more on this topic. This timing is very important because it captures language use during a politically and emotionally charged moment. And the analysis focused on the language choice. What language choice did those users use for their tweeting or their posting? How code switching was done, and the topic variety correlations. Next, I think, yes. So now, do we actually see the in terms of language? Do we see any differences here? Kuwaiti Twitter users draw on a rich linguistics repertoire, and Kuwaiti Arabic signals authenticity, informality, and local identity. However, the modern standard Arabic signaled authority, seriousness of work, and legitimacy as well. Also, Kuwaiti users, I found them tweeting in English, okay, and that signaled modernity, prestige, and global reach, especially when it comes to retweeting, for example, from Donald Trump's tweets. So they would retweet and comment on that tweet. We also have, I'm not sure if you're familiar with this term, Arabzi. So Arabzi is a Romanized Arabic, where the text is Arabic, however, using Roman letters to indicate the language. So this has been apparent, especially with amongst youngsters users, reflecting again digital creativity and flexibility. So how do users decide which language to use in that case? Findings have shown that language choice is highly strategic. In terms of identity construction, Kuwaiti Arabic express national belonging. English reflected the global identity and global reach as well. Modern Standard Arabic constructed the authority of the content. Audience design by Alan Bell has also been considered here. Local audience, when the users wanted to address local audience, they would use the colloquial Arabic, the Kuwaiti Arabic. Formal or broad audience, giving also not only global as the Middle East or the rest of Arabia, but also the other Gulf area, because we have different dialects. Kuwait is different dialect from Emirates, different from Bahrain. However, they are mutually intelligible. And finally, the international audience users would use English language. I also categorized the topics into 3 topics. So personal and humor. So again, I always consider the Kuwaiti population as funny. They always make fun of anything. They don't take anything seriously. Again, some of them at least. So during the war, a lot of jokes, a lot of humor content were shared on social media. Again, once translated, it will lose all the meaning. Therefore, I did not translate anything, and I didn't bring anything to this paper. So when it comes to humor and personal tweets, Kuwaiti users would use the dialect, the Kuwaiti dialect. If they are posting about politics, any information, religion, prayers. Again, we are Muslim country, and during time of war, a lot of prayers, a lot of grace have been happening on the social media. So they would use the modern standard Arabic. Finally, discussing topics such as technology, business. Again, the very first few weeks of the war, I remember we suffered from technology problem. Not technology, I mean, the internet was very weak in Kuwait. And the business, again, business went down. So a lot of users have been tweeting about the situation of technology and the business using English language. There's also the balance between the solidarity and prestige here, and code switching is used strategically, not randomly. To put it simply, Kuwaiti Arabic is used for emotions, humor, and local interaction. Think of it as shortening the distance between the users and the audience, higher solidarity with the other Twitter users. Modern Standard Arabic is used as a formal, political, and religious discourses. Also, it constructed and positioned the user as in authoritative and higher prestige, more educated situation, or sorry, status. Um, English again is also used as a global communication and modern identity performance. So users are constantly navigating this linguistic continuum, making purposeful choices depending on who they're talking to, what are they talking about, and so on. This brings us to a key argument of the study. We are witnessing a shift here, a diaglossic shift from diglossia to multiglossia, or as I call it, translanguaging. Okay, bringing not only English Arabic or colloquial Arabic to modern standard Arabic, but also emojis in the social media plays significant role. The GIFs, the pictures, the memes, all of those play significant role in during the war in Kuwait. So instead of a simple high versus low distinction, we are now seeing a complex multilingual system. Language use is strategic here, identity driven, and context sensitive. And this challenged the traditional models and extends them into a digital domain. To conclude, Kuwaiti Twitter users do not switch language randomly. Their choices are meaningful. Kuwaiti Arabic indexes identity and solidarity. Modern Standard Arabic indexes authority and legitimacy. And English indexes modernity, globalization, and again, international reach. So this study contributed to expanding the pluricentric language theory into more, let's say, digital sociolinguistics. And again, as I mentioned, any feedback is welcome. I'm coming to that at the end of my presentation. Thank you so much.
Okay, great presentation. I hope my skills were good enough for you. Does anybody have any questions? We're a little behind on time, but I'm sure we could squeeze a question in if anybody has one. No?
Or feedback. Any constructive feedback is welcome, by the way.
Well, I found it quite interesting, I must admit, but I don't have any questions. Oh, go on, Ingo.
Yeah, I would have a question on the effect of the shortness of the messages. I mean, did you do any quantitative analysis how often people are able to switch from whatever variety to whatever variety in those short messages, because that might also be a language a variety dependent, or having to do with topic, or I don't know. Is there anything going on there that might be interesting?
Yeah, I've noticed that people would answer any tweet or reply to any tweet on the same language that the tweet was there. So if I'm tweeting in English, you will see the answers in English. If I'm tweeting in Modern Standard Arabic, the answers or the responses would be Modern Standard Arabic. So this is something that I noticed, and this is actually a nice question. Yeah, but I mean, I haven't mentioned it, but again, I should probably like bring it up.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Thanks.
Thank you to the presentation and for the question. Okay, so we'll move on to oral presentation number 3, which I believe is Awasha Atiga. I'm going with this, syntactic boundaries and pronominal agreement with British collective noun.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you so much for joining my talk today. My presentation today is on syntactic boundaries and pronominal agreement with collective nouns in British English. I am Awasha Atiga. I will be presenting our joint work with my colleague Asma Al-Hawi who's unfortunately not be able to attend today from the University of Lancashire. I'm very pleased to be presenting our research at this conference. So let's begin with by outlining the focus of our study. Okay, so our study focuses specifically on agreement with personal pronouns in British English, and we investigated how collective nouns behave when they are referred back to by anaphoric pronouns. So we looked at two case studies, government and family. While agreement with collective nouns has been intensively or widely discussed in the literature, especially in relation to verbs, pronouns have received comparatively less focused quantitative attention. Our key interest is how syntactic boundaries affect pronominal agreement choices, whether speakers use singular or plural pronouns. So I will briefly review what we mean by collective nouns, first of all, and why they pose a challenge for agreement. So to begin with some background, collective nouns are typically defined as words that denote groups or collections of people or entities. As Lyons describes them, they denote collections or groups, and examples include nouns like family and government. So collective nouns are morphologically singular, but they often express plural meaning at the semantic level. And family and government are examples of that. So this mismatch between the form and meaning is exactly what gives rise to agreement variation, which brings me to the following point. So collective nouns can trigger either singular or plural agreement, both with verbs and with anaphoric pronouns. So prior research has shown that agreement with pronouns behaves differently from agreement with verbs. So in particular, the link between a collective noun and its pronoun tends to be weaker than the link to the verb because of the distance. So as I said, one reason for this is that pronouns frequently occur later in the sentence or discourse with interfering material that may weaken formal agreement and increase semantic agreement. We can see this variation quite clearly in actual language use, as the following examples illustrate. So here are the examples that illustrate or demonstrate pronominal variation. In the first example, the crowd here, the collective noun is followed by the singular pronoun, which is its. And in the next example, the same collective noun, crowd, is referred to by the plural pronoun there. So these examples demonstrate that speakers have a real choice and that agreement is not fixed but variable. So what's important is that this variability doesn't always button in the same way as verbal agreement. So research has demonstrated that pronominal agreement doesn't necessarily or always align with verbal agreement. For example, we can have a singular verb, as in the example, the family has decided, followed by a plural pronoun, which is they are searching the internet. So this mismatch suggests that the factors influencing verbal agreement do not map directly onto those influencing pronouns. So as a result, pronouns deserve we thought they deserve independent investigation rather than being treated as or connected to verbs. So this tells us that pronouns deserve to be investigated in their own right, and this nicely brings us to the specific or the original contribution of our study. So many previous studies have claimed that plural agreement increases with distance between a collective noun and its pronoun, especially across clauses or sentence boundaries. But we've noticed that those claims, or the majority of those, the majority of claims made in the literature are often qualitative. So rather than systematically quantified. So our contribution is was to test this assumption empirically and to model distance in terms of syntactic boundaries rather than just linear word count. So our study directly addresses this gap by asking a more precise question about syntactic structure. So our main research question was, how does syntactic separation between a collective noun and its anaphoric pronoun affect agreement? So we compared 3 contexts, pronouns in the same clause, pronouns in a different clause within the same sentence, and pronouns in the following sentence. So to answer this question, we carried out a corpus-based analysis, which I will outline in the following slide. So our data came from the British National Corpus using the XML edition. We surveyed, or we looked at the entire corpus and focused only on third-person anaphoric pronouns. The antecedents that we examined were government and family, these 2 collective nouns. Following Nexus's approach, we considered pronouns occurring within a 10-word window after the collective noun, and the main reason for that is to make our study practical, and we can do it. So the next slide shows in brief how this search was conducted, and we'll explain how actually we've done it. So this is the corpus query that we used to extract relevant examples, and this query identifies cases where a collective noun appears usually in a subject position. That's why we put the PUN, that tag at the start. So followed by an anaphoric pronoun such as it, they, them, its, or their. So the wildcard sequence allows for up to 10 interfering words, ensuring that we capture non-adjacent cases. So I won't go into the technical details here, but the key takeaway is that the method that we use captures naturally occurring non-adjacent examples. And once, we've extracted all the data, we manually filtered the data. And I will talk about the manual filtering in the next slide. So we excluded cases, that include non-anaphoric pronouns, ambiguous antecedents, domi-it, and coordinated word noun phrases. So I put some examples, but I don't think the time will allow me to go through the examples here. But I'm happy to share them with you if you're interested. Each remaining case was coded according to syntactic boundary position. And so this slide presents our findings. So that this table presents our key findings. For family, the plural pronoun agreement increases gradually. This is what we noticed as boundaries are crossed. So it starts with 68% in the same clause, and then moves to 75% across clauses, and then it's up to 68% in the following sentence. So this indicates gradual boundary effects. And what's interesting here is that government contrasts with family. So government behaves differently, which is very interesting because plural agreement is very low in the same clause, which is similar to family, and then rises sharply across close boundaries, but doesn't continue to rise in the following sentence. So this pattern suggests that sentence boundaries play a particularly important role. So rather than a uniform distance effect, we observe two distinct patterns. So let me briefly discuss how these findings fit into the broader theoretical picture. So our findings seem to be in line with Corbett's agreement hierarchy in showing that pronouns favor semantic agreement. But what our study adds is the evidence that syntactic boundary position postulates this tendency. And it's very important to look at the syntactic boundaries as well as distance, the syntactic distance. So referring back to the literature, previous research has also argued that plural pronoun increases with distance. This is what has been widely claimed. Our results confirm that this general tendency, it's in line with this tendency, but also show that the distance alone doesn't capture the full picture. As I said, syntactic boundaries also play an important role. So instead, syntactic boundaries provide a more precise and explanatory account than the linear distance measured in words between the collective noun and the pronouns. So this also has implications for how we think about collective nouns more generally. And also many corpus studies treat collective nouns as a relatively homogeneous group. So based on the findings that we have came up with, this probably challenges this assumption because of the of the findings that we got up to. Okay. So to conclude, syntactic boundaries do influence pronominal agreement, but not at the same way across collective nouns. So close boundaries are not equally salient for all pronouns. Although I would say that our study still preliminary because we've only started with 2 collective nouns at the moment, and our intention is to carry out further investigations to include more collective nouns and see how these findings would appear across several collective nouns. So overall, agreement variation is both syntactically conditioned, and this is what we conclude: syntactically conditioned and noun specific, because the agreement with family was not as the same as agreement with government. So future research could extend to include additional, as I said, additional collective nouns, and this is what we're planning to do. It would also value to examine other varieties of English to see whether boundary sensitivity is variety specific, and also compare the 2 modes of English, spoken versus written registers, which might reveal whether boundary effects differ across those modes of production. Thank you so much for your attention, and I'm happy to take any questions.
Okay, thank you so much for your presentation and persevering with the technical difficulties. We are a little bit behind, but if anybody does have a very quick question, we could do this, or alternatively send a message in the chat, and I'm sure you can respond in this.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay. Yeah. So let's crack on. Yes, and
thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
And so we'll move on to the next presentation, and that is oral presentation number 4, Ancient Greek to Italian Translation with ChatGPT. Sounds fascinating. I've seen this name before, Castagnarelli, Nigrelli.
Traces back to Latin Castra. Castra. It's a name from Monreale, near Palermo. We are from Palermo. We both are from Palermo.
Is this Riccardo then?
Riccardo, yeah.
Okay.
Thank you so much. Okay, thank you so much. So the aim of our study is to contribute to determine how far AI has progressed when faced with the translation of ancient Greek texts. We conducted a quantitative comparison between ChatGPT's outputs and authoritative human Italian translations across different genres from both the archaic and classical period, including epic and lyric poetry, theater and technical prose. However, for the sake of time, we here present only a selection of significant examples taken from Homer, Sappho, and Hippocrates. In our analysis, we considered morphosyntax and ran a strict lexical check to see how culturally significant terms were handled by AI. While ancient Greek is a language of immense prestige, it is categorized in the digital humanities as a low-resource language. This classification does not stem from a lack of primary sources, but rather from a scarcity of high-quality, gold-standard parallel corpora. In fact, AI does not learn ancient Greek through the pedagogical acquisition of grammar or the immersion in the diachronic tradition. It processes ancient Greek as a series of probabilistic associations across fragmented datasets, as it does with other languages. A central pillar of our theoretical framework is the tension between functional equivalence and philological identity. In modern translation studies, particularly following the traditions established by NIDA, we see a conflict between domestication and foreignization. As recently analyzed, ChatGPT, by its very architecture, is a subordinating engine of domestication. Its primary translational objective is fluency, the production of a target text that adheres to the most probable linguistic norms of the target language. However, in the realm of classical philology, such fluency often functions as a veil. By prioritizing the communicative impact on a modern reader, ChatGPT inevitably sacrifices formal equivalence. The specificities of the Greek sources, so its metrics, its formulaic epithets, its linguistics, are smoothed over in a process defined as lexical flattening. Also, when the machine encounters a pragmatically dense construction, this results in a translation that is grammatically correct, but culturally blind. This leads us to a critical concept in our study, philological hallucination. There is a factual error as the normalization of the ancient world. To contribute to understand how far AI has progressed in translating ancient texts, we intentionally focused on the comparative analysis of AI, namely ChatGPT in its GPT-5 Ultimate version, and human translations of high-density literary and technical ancient Greek texts. By comparing ChatGPT's Italian output with established human gold standards, specifically the translation of Cerri, Quasimodo, and Vegetti, we can calibrate our analysis against the highest level of human achievement. The choice of Italian is motivated by the relative scarcity of studies of this kind in Italian as a target language, compared to the considerable body of research on translation into English. Within this scope, three analytical threads emerge. The first thread is morphosyntactic resolution. We examine how the model handles with the flexible word order of ancient Greek. The second thread is formulaic preservation. Ancient Greek literature, particularly in the Homeric tradition, is built upon a system of oral formulaic composition. We track how these formulas are either preserved as cultural markers or discarded as stylistic redundancies by the LLM's drive for contemporary efficiency. The third thread is technical accuracy. This is particularly relevant in the transition from literary to technical prose. Here, the inquiry shifts from aesthetics to precision. We analyze whether the machine can distinguish between the common meaning of lemma and its application within a specific domain of knowledge, corpus and selected subset. The corpus includes Greek texts from both the archaic and classical period, belonging to different genres and different authors, but only data from a limited subset are here discussed for the sake of time. The specific excerpts from Homer, Sappho, and Hippocrates presented today were not selected randomly. Rather, they were deliberately chosen to embody some of the greatest challenges ancient Greek can pose to an AI model. Although limited, they act as extreme linguistic stress tests. Naturally, we must acknowledge and entail the epistemological limit. One cannot definitively deduce the absolute capability or incapacity of such an algorithmic system based solely on a quite limited selection of passages. In fact, our qualitative probes are not intended to be statistically exhaustive. However, this analysis serves as an initial qualitative evaluation test for a project that has potential to be scaled up in the future. Ancient Greek inherently combines the computational challenges of small parallel corpora with its own profound linguistic complexity. This intrinsic difficulty has been extensively documented over the years by scholars. In recent years, however, the paradigm of machine translation has shifted dramatically. As computer scientists have demonstrated, that models such Claude, Gemini, and ChatGPT show impressive emergent cross-lingual capabilities. Indeed, early quantitative results highlight a striking improvement for classical languages over last generation neural machine translation. This progress has been documented across different ancient corpora on Akkadian, on Latin, as well as on ancient Greek. In a pivotal recent approach spearheaded by Zamaldin et al. In 2026, the prose of Galen has emerged as one of the test cases for the analysis of the medical semantic field. In fact, we will also be offering an insight in Hippocrates' words related to AI. Now, let's move on to the analysis of our selected examples. Thank you, Ricardo.
Okay, so because the Iliad is one of the most famous and widely studied works in human history, ChatGPT inevitably has access to an immense corpus of existing translations, commentaries, and academic papers spread from the web. Consequently, its output is likely not a genuine raw translation generated directly from the ancient Greek source, but rather an algorithmic amalgamation of various Italian versions it has encountered in its training data. While this allows the AI to output a broadly correct narrative, the result remains often unreliable. It produces a hybrid patchwork that, as we will see, often fails to grasp the precise linguistic architecture and poetic nuances of the original text. This unreliability becomes immediately apparent on lexical level, particularly concerning the formulaic language that is the absolute hallmark of Homeric epic. A significant example is the AI's treatment of the recurring epithet Ekebolos Apollos in 1. ChatGPT translates this phrase as Apollo che colpisce da lontano. While this is technically an accurate literary breakdown of the Greek compound, it demonstrates a complete blindness to the literary genre. It simply does not know the traditional poetic vocabulary. By contrast, a human translator like Cherry perfectly captures the epic register with the established and elegant Apollo Saettatore, proving that true translation requires an understanding of literary tradition, not just literal decoding. All of this extends deeply into the morphosyntactic structure of the text, where the AI struggles to handle the grammatical hierarchy of ancient Greek. We can observe a structural failure in the translation of the line exudeta prota diasteten erisante into. ChatGPT renders this passage as da quando per primi si divisero e litigarono. In doing so, it commits a double morphosyntactic flattening that entirely dismantles the original syntax. First, it misinterprets ta prota, which in this context functions as an adverbial accusative and incorrectly translates it as if it were a nominative plural adjective, per primi. Second, it takes erisante and flattens it into a coordinated main verb, e litigarono. Cherry, on the other hand, navigates this gracefully with the prima stante inquinalite divise, using an elegant nominalization and intelligently adapting the syntax to fluid Italian while fully respecting the temporal hierarchy intended by the original Greek. Now we examine a text coming from the fragments of Sappho, which provides us a perfect testing ground for this translational dynamics. Furthermore, we must establish right away that since we are dealing with a fragmentary text, it is incredibly easy for ChatGPT to lose its way and fail to grasp the overreaching semantic thread. This passage serves as a test demonstrating how AI frequently collapses when confronted with more complex ancient poetic structures. The first significant example we must analyze lies in the rendering of the Greek sentence alla kamen glossa meage in 3. On a morphosyntactic level, Sappho uses the verb eage, used here in an intransitive sense to convey the paralyzing inability to speak caused by the overwhelming shock of errors. ChatGPT translates this with a brutal literal carcass, ma la lingua si spezza. This choice sounds purely anatomical, mechanical, and almost violently orthopedic, like a physical fracture, completely stripping away the evocative power and the psychological weight of the poetic symptom. Thus, this is not to say that the AI's translation is incorrect. In fact, some might even argue it is a better or more faithful rendering due to its strict adherence to the literal Greek wording. However, from a qualitative and literary perspective, it is a bit far from being considered as lyrics. Conversely, Salvatore Quasimodo, being thoroughly a poet before he is a translator, perfectly understands how to render this poetic language into Italian. He masterfully translates this moment as "e la voce si perde sulla lingua inerte." A second failure occurs in the translation of the verses "Plorotera de polias emmi" in 4. Here, the Greek adjective "chloros" belongs to a very specific semantic field in the ancient world. While it can mean green in the context of human emotion and physical illness, it denotes the pale, yellowish color of sickness, terror, and very life force. ChatGPT translates this as più verde dell'erba sono. It alters the tragic pathos of the organizing moment. Quasimodo resolved this by focusing on the semantic core rather than the literary chromatic value, translating it as come erba patita scoloro. With a compensation strategy by using a simile with the phrase erba patita and the verb scoloro, he elevates the lexicon to preserve the profound emotional weight and the visual palette of the original text, conveying the idea of distress. Moving forward in the last example of our analysis, we now transition to a completely different linguistic domain, the technical language of ancient medicine. As we shift our focus from poetry to prose, we immediately notice a distinct advantage in the translation process. Prose inherently lacks the rich constraints of meter and the complex rhetorical figures typical of poetic verse, making it significantly more accessible to translate. While minor morphosyntactic inaccuracies can still occasionally surface, the absence of poetic constraints means that the primary challenge here lies strictly within the highly specialized medical semantic field. Nevertheless, as we will see, the overall results achieved by ChatGPT are objectively excellent. The first example in 5, Cardidaxis ten technen tauten, involves the expression ten technen tauten, which appears multiple times within the Hippocratic Covenant and designates the medical profession. This phrase must be accurately translated as quest'arte, and this is clearly seen in both Bergetti's rendition and ChatGPT's translation. The AI model proves it is highly capable of preserving Greek technical terminology correctly, even when it is reiterated throughout the text. A second crucial example that highlights how the medical semantic fields acts as the primary hardware can be found in the core therapeutic declaration. From a morphosyntactic perspective, ChatGPT navigates the sentence "Diatemasite cresomai in 6" flawlessly. The real challenge, however, lies at the lexical level. The noun diatema is a fundamental technical term in ancient Greek medicine, referring not merely to diet in the narrative sense, but to the patient's entire regimen of life. In its translation, Bergetti renders the term as regime, a choice that preserves its full medical and philosophical scope. ChatGPT likewise produces a highly accurate solution, translating it as regime di vita, thereby correctly recognizing that the concept extends beyond food to encompass the broader lifestyle described for the patient. So, in conclusion, the comprehensive analysis conducted across various literary genres has contributed to provide a picture of ChatGPT's current capabilities and limitations in translating ancient Greek. The examination of Homeric texts revealed that while the model successfully captures the general narrative sense, it produces a hybrid construct that fails to grasp complex morphosyntactic hierarchies and flattens the formulaic language essential to epic poetry. These difficulties were even more pronounced in the Fragments of Sappho. When faced with textual fragmentation and highly poetic density, the AI defaulted to mechanical and literal translation that stripped the verses of their evocative power and original psychological weight. In addition, the analysis of Hippocrates' technical medical prose yielded objectively excellent results. In the absence of the rigid metrical and rhetorical constraints typical of poetry, along with its typical register, the model proved highly capable of accurately translating complex specialized terminology. So, these findings try to show that at present, ChatGPT cannot be considered a fully reliable autonomous translator for ancient texts, but rather serves as a useful supportive tool. Its output fundamentally requires careful supervision and post-editing by expert human translators. So, here are the references of our study, and thank you for your attention.
Thank you very much for your presentation. It's great to see you again. I remember from Paris you were here as well, no?
Yes.
Yeah. So it's great to see you again. And thank you so much, Ricardo, for your part of that presentation as well. We are running a little bit behind, but does anybody have a quick question for these two? You can put your hand up. If not, we'll move on to the final presentation of today. Okay, looks like it's all quiet, guys. If you do have any questions, please write it in the text or the chat box, and these two can respond in due course. Okay, so let's move on to the final presentation of today. And so that is, ooh, she's there. That was quick. Okay.
I'm waiting.
Yeah, waited. Okay, so we have vowel realization. Again, I can't pronounce this last place. Realization in the Romanian variety of kefol. Can't pronounce this word. My British brain can't compute, I'm afraid. But this is Dorothea, and when you're ready, it's over to you.
Thank you. My name is Dorothea Bilbili. I'm a postgraduate student at the University of Ioannina, and my supervisor is Anna Sfakianaki. Today I'm going to talk about the vowel realization in the Romanian variety of Kefalovrişo. First of all, Kefalovrişo, or midday in Vlach language, is located near the Greek-Albanian border. It's a small village with roughly 600 inhabitants, and they're all bilinguals, with both Vlach and Greek being their native languages. The Vlach language has been reported as a endangered one due to the native speakers' shrinking population. It's a spoken-only language without a unified written system or institutional support in Greece. And the Vlachs of Greece are mainly found in these regions, Epirus, Thessaly, and Macedonia. The varieties of the Vlach language are split into two categories, the northern and the southern, based on morphological and phonological isoglosses. Romanian is one of the northern varieties, and one distinctive trait it has fricative phoneme, fricative uvular phoneme. Also, northern varieties contain 6 vowels, E, A, O, U, and schwa, while on the other hand, southern varieties contain 7 vowels, E, A, O, U, schwa, and bar D. But we have to keep in mind that there are no strict boundaries between these varieties. Literature review rendered 6 studies, 3 of them phonological and 3 acoustics. As for the phonological studies, they examined only southern varieties, and their conclusion is that the vowel system is related to the presence of stress and the vowel position. They characterized bar D as a central high vowel and schwa as a central mid vowel in stressed and unstressed positions. But it's important to note that these characterizations based on subjective judgments and not on experimental data. As for the acoustic studies, we have 2 unpublished. They also examined only southern varieties, and the third one by Vrasitoulis compared some northern with some southern in spontaneous speech corpus. He found 7 vowels only stressed position and only southern. As for the northern, schwa and bardi showed overlap in stressed position, and these 2 vowels realized close to M. There are some limitations on his research. For example, there is no mention of speakers' age, and he had unbalanced data set between male and female speakers, so we need more homogenized data. Now, some common phonological features between the 2 languages are they share the 5 following vowels, they are stressed languages, they have right trisyllabic stress window, they prefer open syllables, and certain phonological phenomena, such as raising and deletion of unstressed vowels, occur. The present study aims to investigate the acoustic characteristics of Vlach Romanian vowels in comparison with the Greek counterparts, and to further look into the acoustic status of the vowel schwa and bardi in a northern variety. We have 2 hypotheses. The first one is that the Romanian variety of Kefalovrişo has a central vowel schwa but no bardi because it belongs to northern varieties, and the rest of the Romanian vowels are acoustically close to the Greek counterparts. We have 3 research questions. What are the acoustic features, format 1 and format 2, normalized or absolute, of the Romanian and the Greek vowels? Are there any statistical differences between the 2 vowel systems? And finally, are both schwa and bardi realized as separate vowels in this variety? Continuing with methodology, after an extensive interview process, 10 bilingual speakers, half of them male, half of them female, participated in a recording task. Their average age was 74, and no one reported any hearing or speech disorders. Kefalovrişo was the place of birth and permanent residence of the inhabitants. And now a few things about educational background and bilingualism of speakers. 9 speakers have attended primary school, and only 1 went to high school. Also, 9 speakers were characterized as sequential bilinguals because they were exposed to Vlach as a language 1 and to Greek as a language 2, and only 1 was characterized as simultaneous bilingual because he was exposed to both languages from birth. Also, when asked which language they prefer using in their everyday life, all speakers answered that they prefer to speak Greek more than Vlach, making Vlach as a secondary language. so participants can be characterized as Greek-dominant bilinguals. As for the material, consisted of Vlach and Greek target words. The structure of the target words were disyllabic, with stress on the first syllable. The first consonant was bilabial and the second was bilabial or alveolar. So participants had to incorporate these target words in this carrier phrase. Jesse patruori, which means he said 4 times. Here is an example. And λέγε πάλι, which means say again. Here is another example. So we used a PowerPoint with 7 prompt images depicting the meaning of the target words in Vlach, because it's a spoken-only language, and 5 images for Greek. Before recordings began, participants took some time to familiarize themselves with pictures and carrier phrases. Oh, sorry. So recordings were made in participants' homes in a quiet environment, and the speech was recorded with a dynamic microphone, which was connected with a marriage recorder PMD661 with sampling rate 44,100 Hz. Format 1 and Format 2 measurements were analyzed with Pratt's program and were subsequently normalized using Lobanov method in NOR. In total, 600 vowels were analyzed, specifically 350 in Romanian, because we have 10 speakers, times 7 vowels, times 5 repetitions, and 250 in Greek, because we have 10 speakers, times 5 vowels, times 5 repetitions. And finally, linear mixed models were employed in SPSS in order to capture the similarities and differences between the 2 vowel systems and within the Vlach language. Moving on to the results, what we see here is a plot of female speakers for both languages. Romanian vowels were depicted with a red color, and Greek vowels were depicted with a green color. So Romanian vowels E, A, O, U were lower than the Greek ones, but only O and U had a statistical significant difference for format 1 values. Also, only O were more front than the Greek ones, with statistical significant difference in format 2 values, and Bardi and Schwa realized close to E and A correspondingly, with statistical significant difference with them. As for the normalized female vowels, again, the back vowels O and U were lower than the Greek ones, with statistical significant difference, and O, U, E had a statistical significant difference in normalized format 2 values. So all observations with raw values confirmed with normalized values, except from the vowel E, which was more back than the Greek one. As for the male speakers, the vowels E, A, O, U were lower than the Greek counterparts, with statistical significant difference in format 1 values, and O, U were more front than the Greek ones, with statistical significant difference. Again, Bardi and Schwa realized close to E and A correspondingly, with statistical significant difference. Continuing with the normalized male vowels, we have the same results with raw values, so statistical significant differences in format 1 and format 2 with raw values confirmed with normalized values. What we see here is a plot of normalized Romanian vowels of both genders, and elliptical representations were made in norm with 1 standard deviation. X symbolized the Bardi and Y symbolized the Schwa. In order to measure the acoustic overlap, we calculated the Pillai's trace per speaker, and here is the mean of the speakers, 0.621 for the first vowel per E with part E, and for the second was 0.531 for the A and Schwa. So we have 2 partial overlaps. According to theoretical accounts, we expected the Schwa in a more mid position, whereas Toulis in northern varieties found overlap between Schwa and part E, and these 2 vowels realized close to E in stressed position. But we did not observe overlap between these 2 vowels. However, Toulis examined spontaneous speech while we examined directed speech. Our findings regarding Romanian vowels are part D and E overlap partially, Schwa and A overlap partially too. And this overlap suggests reduced acoustic distinctiveness in format 1 and format 2 vowel space. Definitely some overlap is expected even when speakers maintain a phonemic contrast, because it can come from ordinary within category variability, co-articulation, or speaker differences. But weakened contrast may be due to the impact of the dominant language, denoting a change in progress, maybe a merger. In conclusion, Schwa was realized as more open than expected. Party and Schwa partially overlap with the and in format 1 and format 2 space, suggesting weakened contrast. And the Riemannian vowels were statistically significantly lower than the Greek counterparts, only male speakers. And the two back vowels O and U differed significantly across the two languages. Specifically in Riemannian were lower and more front than in Greek for both genders. To our knowledge, this variety has never been studied before, and this study adds to the documentation of the Vlach language. Also, the varieties of the Vlach language are characterized by high degree of microparametric variation, so more linguistic research should be done. Future acoustic studies should investigate Bardi and Schwa in stressed versus unstressed positions, indirected versus spontaneous pitch, and partial acoustic overlap of Bardi and Schwa with the and a should be examined further through a perception study to assess whether it reflects possible reduction of the Riemannian vowel inventory. In closing, I would like to thank all the participants for the valuable contribution to this research. Without them, none of this would have been possible. Thank you for your time and for your attention.
Thank you for your presentation.
Thank you too.
Very good, very good. We'd like to give this opportunity to see if anybody has any questions. I know we're a little bit over, but let's see. Does anybody? Of course. Well done, Ingo.
Yeah, thank you. Very interesting. Have you looked? I mean, you only have tested a couple of words, and it seems to me that maybe
Different.
one possible sort of influence might be co-articulation that might explain this Bard E Schwa business, which is really strange, right? There must be a reason
Yes.
that why people have classified these sounds as they did, and then you find totally different values. So maybe it's before investigating large problems like speaker influences or historical changes or sociolinguistic changes, then maybe co-articulation could explain at least some of this, because also your Greek examples, they have different other vowels often. So and we know that there is co-articulation across consonants. So maybe by looking at the literature on certain co-articulatory phenomena can help to at least accommodate some of your weird findings here.
Yes, thank you. Schwa was more open than Ao, so it's very weird. But the Vlach is spoken only language, and it's very challenging to find the appropriate words and comparable with Greek ones. I did the best. In this, in final position, the vowels, yes, it's different, totally different. The initial syllable was same, I think.
Yes, but if you look at, for example, the second vowel, and then you find that it's maybe lower or higher
Yes.
than in different words, then it might be you might be able to explain some of that variability of the schwa and the Bard E.
Thank you. And this is part of my thesis. After directed speeches recordings, we did spontaneous recordings in order to examine stressed and unstressed positions. So we will see. Thank you.
Okay. Well,
Thank
that
you.
brings any other questions? Or are we ready to go and finish the day? Or what time is it now? 7 o'clock. No. Well, thank you for everybody for participating. And this has been the first day of Linguistics Athens 2026. We have 2 more days to go. And all of these presentations will be online. So this is a thank you from me, from the Society, to all of our keynotes and presentations, because obviously it's you guys that make this all possible. So this will be the last time you see me. Tomorrow and on Friday, you will have one of my co-workers, Milana, and hopefully everything will go smooth. We always have tech problems, no? So thank you so much, and I hope to see you or speak to you at some point in the future. But thank you so much.
Thanks to you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye bye.
Good evening.